I am resident of Collinwood, Jules Sains for YouTube, joined by Melissa Gallagher. How are you?
Hi, guys. Hi. Well, I'm getting over a cold. We were just talking. I'm getting over a cold. I got my tea and my cough drops and everything. But there's nothing more comforting when you have a cold than black and white dark shadows.
I have a question for you. What's some of your favorite black and white episodes of DS?
Oh my gosh. I have to, it's so hard
I know.
because, like you do, I love Mitch Ryan. I love the whole thing with Bill Malloy and the pen and, and then how, Bert Devlin ends up going from enemy of the Collins to Big Brother. So I love that. I love Buzz and Carolyn. There's so much, but my all-time favorite, and I'm going to look at my notes a little bit if you don't mind, even though I've watched this hundreds of times, is the first week Jonathan Frid was on.
Yeah.
Because when he meets Liz and she says, "You're just as the Collins should be." And when he meets David at the old house and David thinks he's a ghost.
Yeah.
I love that. And then when he talks to Vicky about, the marble from Italy built this old house and the tiles from Spain. And Jonathan Frid's acting, I think, is at one of its best when he is on that first week on the show, because Jonathan is so good at monologues. He just touches your soul and your heart with his warmth. And there's something about, as nefarious as he is before he gets cured, before Julia starts giving him shots, before Lang comes into the picture and helps make him more human and have a heart, as nefarious as he is, this personally touches me, because there's something about how many of us have wanted to go back into the past and change things that we did wrong or that we regret, or how many of us wanted to get something from the past and get it back that we lost, that we'll never get again. And he's able to somehow, bring to light what he lost. He's able to bring to, sorry about that. He's able to, you know, grab a piece of the past and come home again. And, and that's a beautiful thing that he has a second chance, even though it's quite nefarious, but he does eventually make that second chance a beautiful thing, when he gets cured. But yeah, it touches me deeply in that way. I wish that I could go back to the past and, have it again, or change things, or do things and differently, and or have another chance, and so it really touches me. But he, talking to the Collins, oh my gosh, when he talks to, I just love when he goes in and David thinks he's a ghost.
Yeah.
And then, and he says, well, I've seen ghosts.
Yeah.
And Barbara's like, what? And, and then and he says, yeah, Josette's here. And I've seen Josette and she protects me because I'm a Collins.
Yeah.
And then when he leaves, Barnabas looks up at the picture and says, why didn't you protect me? I needed protection. Why didn't you protect me? And you can just feel the pain in his voice. And then, when he is talking to Vicky about the old house, I've always loved the old house even more than Collinwood, because I don't know, this is so cozy, even though it's supposed to be monstrous. It feels like home to me. And I love how he's explaining how it was built, and there's a sadness there too, because people died building it, but yet he's here to give it life again. And
Yeah.
how about you? I want to know what your favorite era of the black and white is.
Oh God, there's so many. I love what Dark Shadows does with their lighting. It's really smart, and this is going to go out throughout the show, even in black and white. Where look on a train where there's all this color.
Yeah.
There's this lighting, what I should say, sorry. But
Yeah.
here's Victoria Winters, who's got who's like excitement, but isn't showing it on her face.
Mhm.
And behind her is Burt Devlin, a couple seats back, who's all giddy, and you could see it in his face.
Yeah, he's
And
ready for revenge. Yeah.
right, you see the two character differences right
Yeah.
away with that
Yeah.
lighting. And then you see the flashback of Victoria in New York. And then after, and you see, again, there's great lighting.
Yeah.
But when you see the great house, when you see Colin there, it's dark, sort of. Like the inside, it's lit, but it's not as brightly lit as that train was, or even that room was back in New York. There seems to be this dark, foreboding sense. With
Yeah.
it's sort of like the room is both the character Roger and Liz's mood, dark,
Right. Right.
and you're getting that
Yeah.
sense before one word is uttered, and then they utter their words, and then you get why. And it's really just genius. I mean, Dark Shadows does this time and time again, where one of the best moments for me is when the first storm hits Collinwood. And it's Carolyn warns this. She tees this up very well. Nancy Barrett does,
Yeah,
and
she's
she
great.
says, there's a storm coming. Collinwood by candlelight, and it's Victoria's first time in the dark at Collinwood, and completely in the dark. I mean, she's seen the dark. She's walked outside. I love how that's another thing. I love the early shots where they actually do shoot
Yeah, they go
out,
outside. I
out of
love
sea
that too. Yeah.
out of Seaview. They do use the actual Seaview house for some time for like
Yeah.
shots, but when the lights, David's run away because of the bleeder valve thing, because Victoria's accused him of it, and she's right.
Right.
And the house already looks dark. We've
Yeah.
seen how dark the house looks without a storm.
Right.
Now here's the storm, and the lights go completely out, and she like can't see nothing. And then she sees this figure standing in the drawing room, and she said, "Who's there? Who's that?"
Yeah.
This is her first ghost she's seen.
Yeah.
And then then the lights come back on, and Roger's like, "What are you doing here in the dark?" And again, it still looks dark even after the storm.
Yeah.
And then really too, when you look at the Phoenix arc, how strange it is that, and again, the dining room that Maggie worked at was always nicely lit. When Diana Malay just appears out of nowhere,
Yeah.
and she's sitting there, and I don't know if it's just me, but I always notice it's almost like there's a brightness to her, to the
There
when she,
is.
and it's really strange. I mean, we all get why, but
She's got the fire inside.
right,
Yeah.
she's the Phoenix. But
Yeah.
again, Dark Shadows was really good at setting this lighting for certain reasons, and even like you mentioned the old house, and that's a great point too. When we first see the old house, we see how dark the inside is. There's no
Right.
candlelight. There's all these spider webs. It's dirty. It's filthy.
Yeah.
And then when Barnabas does arrive, and you see David playing on the steps, David, just the fact that a kid would plan a house this dirty, this abandoned, just
Yeah.
says how demented David is. And it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
It is beautiful. He's eccentric.
Is
He's eccentric.
There's another
Yes.
too where prior to all that, I love now we the first cemetery we get isn't Eagle Hill.
Yeah.
It's where the Phoenix Laura Stockbridge is buried. And I love how that cemetery feels as creepy as Eagle Hill. Because
Does.
really,
Yeah.
when they knock on the door, well, prior to that, the setup to it is Frank and Vicky are in the car. And I love how they would light the inside of the cars too. It wasn't too bright lit, it was dark on the inside.
Right.
You just see the two people sitting in a moving vehicle, and I love that
Right.
because it's so simple.
Right.
And Vicky goes, Jasmine, and Frank said, what? Josette's trying to tell her something, and
Yeah.
they pull over, and here's the cemetery, and there's this door, and so they're in this cemetery at night, not knowing if anybody's going to answer them, and
Yeah.
just the mood is so nicely set prior to knocking on that door, and when the door just slightly opens, they're like, "Holy shit, did a ghost
Beautiful.
open the door?" And no, it's the caretaker, but it's still you still get the effect of the creepiness.
There was a magic to the black and white episodes, what you're touching on. You didn't have people dropping hammers, you didn't have noises as much. It was very professionally done, but at the same time, it almost felt like you're saying with the lighting, it feels like the film is alive and
Yeah,
like it's so crisp and beautiful, and it feels almost as if your living room is part of the set. Like you could reach out and touch the characters, and it has a magic to it. And it's funny when I'm turning on streaming and I see like on Prime and all those like Freevee and all those different ones, I have an option: Dark Shadows the beginning or regular Dark Shadows. And I'm always like, what should I watch? I don't know, because
yeah,
they're both just so beloved to all of us and the viewers, you guys. But there's a magic to this. I mean, you had Ron Sproat, you had, which he brought so much romance and allure and magic. I love his writing. And then, like you said, the camera work, and even think about the ghosts, like
yeah,
Josette coming out of the picture. I know you love this, Joel, as
yeah.
much as I do. When she comes out of the photo and then she's dancing around the old house outside, that looks so real and it's so professional and so beautifully done. It's better done than even the later episodes in color where it's green screen.
Mm,
This looks like something right out of the Haunted Mansion, or
yeah,
it is a beautiful, realistic shot of her. And like you said, it looks like Catherine Scott facially
yeah,
walking down out of the photo. It's absolutely stunning and creepy and gothic. And this is something that the black and white episodes have that they are beloved, even as beloved as they are, our color ones don't. It's a very, and you're touching on it with all this lighting,
yeah,
it's a very special magic that feels alive,
yeah. It
you
does,
know, really
and
does.
it really. There's episodes too in the beginning where, look, long before Quentin, they opened up the West Wing.
Yeah.
We met Quentin, and
Hmm.
really the first time they open up the West, there's two moments of West Wing activity. In the beginning is before Vicky's locked in the room by David. There's an episode where the West Wing door opens all by itself.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It's really, again, it's the little bit of lighting, but a little bit of effect, and it leaves you going, who the hell opened that? And that planet question or what opened it is so good in the early DS episodes.
Right.
You can sort of point to, well, could that have been Quentin's ghost or another ghost? Who knows? We don't
Yeah.
know. But it's again, it's a planted seed by the writers. Hey, this house is haunted, and we see, and again, that's well. By the way, that door opening is well before the death of Bill Malloy, so
Yeah.
it's not the ghost of Bill Malloy.
One of the
It,
first things that we see. Yeah.
yeah, and then when Vicky's in that little room and you see the ghost, I love the effect of the ghost of Bill Malloy as well,
Oh,
and
so
how
good.
what
Yeah.
would you do with a drunken sailor? And he just
Oh, yeah.
in it's so criminally good.
Yeah.
And then when the real nice effect too is after he tells her, leave, Victoria, leave, and or you will die too, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then they Roger and Liz find the seaweed,
Yes, on the
and
floor. Yep.
it sounds corny to some, but it's not,
No,
because it's like it's sort of a in your face to both of them.
it is.
Like right here's
It's
your evidence.
Bill.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really Bill saying, "Hey, no, I was here." you know. And yeah, I love that when Vicky's locked up. David, they, David locking Vicky in the room upstairs. They really have him. There was a movie called The Bad Seed or The Evil Seed, and I think the producers really took from that. I think it was before this. If not, The Bad Seed took from David because it's about this evil child, and it's funny how they had David be so. Um, Psychologically kind of hurting,
Yeah.
and him be and therefore acting out this the way that he did, and he just ended up transforming, much like the Roger character was really classist and very nasty to people, and he ended up being very, very gentle and tender, much like David did. But yeah, I love the whole seaman thing. Back to that, what would you do with a drunken sailor? And yeah, all this, like you said, the outdoor shots and everything, just you get that feel of Collinsport as a sea town,
Yeah.
because you have the outdoor shots of the blue whale, and Joe's talking a lot about wanting to have his own business, and that whole thing. And you really just feel the sea town there that Collinsport really is. And like you said, that's a great ghost, Bill Malloy, too. The ghosts in the black and white were just so scary and so incredible. And they're very talented people working on this. And
Yeah.
really, really appreciate it. And there's some good seances too. The one with Guthrie, but my favorite is, I think it's see, I have it written down here. I think episode 280, where Barnabas has a costume party at the old house,
Uh,
and they invite everybody over, and Vicky says she'd be very happy as Josette, and this is when he's
yeah.
kind of moved on a little bit to Vicky. But yeah, I love watching the seances in black and white too. Are a lot of fun
Yeah.
because they just add to that gothic feel of the show, and the foreboding aura. We had a comment. Somebody said that the black and white episodes add to the gothic flavor, and I agree. They make the seances all the more scary. They make the ghosts all the more frightening. It's really true. No.
There's episodes too where when you look at the
Mm,
daytime and you could look at the nighttime, like when you
yeah.
look at Roger walking along the docks at the day, you go, oh, that's not harmful at all. Okay, now imagine if they shot that at night, and it's like he's walking alone, and you don't know if someone's around to like hurt him
Yeah.
or something. Now that doesn't happen, but there's also that foreboding sense of nighttime danger to the point
Yeah.
of, okay, here, okay, yeah, that's beautiful during the day, but during the nighttime it would be very creepy. And when you see
Mm-hmm.
the inn, the outside of the inn at nighttime, and how dark it is, it's like before they zoom in, it's like, oh, that is creepy. When you see the town at night, it's not well lit. It's just lit enough
Yeah.
that you can see the buildings, and so there's that darkness. And then when you
Right.
go, like, another good moment where they use lighting is inside the garage where Burke's messing around, where
Oh
he
yeah.
finds the wrench and Vicky
Yep.
sees it. And you see the car, you see Burke. Again, this isn't a scary moment, but it's a moment of, here's this lighting, and they have it shined for a reason. They're letting you know, okay, this scene matters because here's Vicky, she sees Burke.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be a planted seed where Burke gets accused of something.
Yep.
And again, it sounds simple, well, because it is.
It
And
is. Yeah. It really
another
is.
thing too, I love, again, the inside of the cars, the drive. Bangor, I love when they're going to Bangor and you see the darkness of the cars inside the cars again.
Mm,
Those are really, they're not scary, but it's creepy, you
right.
know. And especially when Vicky's driving back with Roger and she's telling him about Burke and the pen.
Yeah.
And he's just dismissing it.
Yeah.
And she's now getting the sense of, oh, wait a minute, did I judge wrong?
Yeah.
Again, it's an all too creepy moment because it's raining
It
too,
is.
and the roads are flooding, and you're getting that sense because they actually they're using the rain.
Yeah.
Really nice effect by DS doing this and
Yes.
having that extra sort of tense horror moment with the rain and being in the car with somebody who now you think you're not too safe with.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It really adds to the suspense of, oh my God, is everybody gonna be okay? Are they gonna get in a wreck any moment? Is something gonna happen? Yeah, it really adds to the suspense. And there's an episode too early on where Barnabas, speaking of the rain, talks about a hurricane that came to Collinsport. Did you see that one? And
Yeah.
I'm sure you have. And he talks about how he could hear the screams of the shipmen, as their ships crashed against the rocks, and it's when the lights go out and they're lighting candles, and he's with Carolyn and Vicky in Collinwood, and yeah, and he's talking about how there was a hurricane at Collinwood, and it's really interesting.
I love how he's telling them too. That I think that same episode, he's telling them about the story of Josette as well.
Yes,
And
yes, that leads up to that.
leads
Yeah.
up to, and he says he doesn't say him. He says she was running from her lover, and they say Jeremiah.
Yes.
He doesn't correct them.
Yes. That's
It's
right. That's a great
it,
episode.
and really what the great build up to that is when the power goes out. Barnabas is just standing there at the entrance,
They're
and
like, ah.
it's like and Vicky's like, Mr. Collins. You know,
No.
Jonathan had a fun time scaring him.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now I've heard you say many times, Joel, that Victoria Winters is your favorite character.
Absolutely.
And I want to know all the reasons why. I think it would be so interesting to hear.
Well, I grew up in a my mother was physically abused, and
Oh,
my brother and I were too. So
oh,
we grew up in a domestically violent home with a father who was not the nicest person.
oh,
And Dark
I'm so
Shadows was
sorry.
sort of my comfort
Yeah,
away from it all. And to
yeah,
watch this, this woman, Victoria Winters, go up against the supernatural, the ghosts, the people, you go, well, she can stand up to that shit. I can stand up to that idiot. And I did. And she
oh,
sort of gave me my courage to. Now, I knew I was no match physically for my father, but I wasn't going to be afraid of him no more. And she sort of made me not afraid of him in a lot of ways. And really,
that's
the one
wonderful.
thing Vicky demonstrates is power. That if you take away someone's power, they can't hurt you anymore. An abuser, what they
Yeah,
love most is power. So when I
right.
got away from my dad and he lost that power to hurt me, it weakened him in a lot of ways. That he couldn't do that to me no more. So I
Wow.
think that's one of the big reasons Victoria is my favorite. She's somebody who it's another reason my favorite Halloween protagonist is Kara Strode and
Yeah,
Halloween Switch. Kara goes through has a domestically violent father,
yeah,
and she has a son who no one knows who the dad is, and so she's dealing with raising a son and living with a dad who is a domestic abuser and living in the Myers house with him.
yeah, yeah,
it's it's there's a lot of weight on her shoulders as Daniel Ferens even said too when I was interviewing him, the writer of Halloween 6. So I love really willful protagonists. It's
yeah,
not so overbearing protagonists, but who aren't afraid to take a stand when they know they need to. And
Oh,
that's another reason I love Victoria. And so,
I'm so proud of you, Joel. And that's beautiful that you found strength like that through her. What is it about Dark Shadows that, and I know, and I'd love to hear the viewers' favorite. And in the comments, leave your favorite era of the Black and White Dark Shadows or your favorite storyline of Black and White. That'd be interesting to read. But what is it about Dark Shadows that just crosses the lines into our own lives? It's a show that is like no other because the characters go through similar or parallel situations that we can apply to our own lives. And the acting, like I know you always point out, the acting is so good that and you know, the expressions and the acting and the facial features and the body, everything is just like an orchestra. But it's beyond that, it touches you deeply, you know. And who would ever think even Barnabas, this who starts out so evil, ends up having a heart, you know, in the long run, and being like our best friend every day, you know.
Who's your favorite character?
Well, outside Barnabas, I would have to say I really love Burke Devlin a lot. Because I love his transformation from, you know, being vengeful to being the big brother, you know, looking out for. Once he saw Liz start to pick up that phone and call the police, he knew he was wrong. He knew not all Collins were the same. He knew that she wasn't like Roger. She wasn't spineless. She wasn't, you know, like him whatsoever. That she was strong and that she did what was right. You know, Liz has very high morals. And once he saw her pick up that phone to call the police, he knew she was different and that not all Collins are the same. And and then he went on to just protect that family, you know, from Jason McGuire. I love him too. I love Dennis Patrick. I think he's just a wonderful actor and such a handsome guy. And so is Mitch, you know. I think with Dennis Patrick, they knew they had kind of a Sean Connery because they put him in a domino. I love Bond. And they put him in that sea cap, which is like Sean Connery when he was in From Russia with Love, I believe it was. But such a great actor, both Dennis Patrick and Mitch Ryan. But Mitch Ryan, we do get Dennis Patrick later as Paul Stoddard in the color episodes. But when we're talking about Black and White, something that we don't get later with color is our beloved Mitch Ryan. And man, what a presence. There's nobody like him. He could have been a great Batman, a great Superman. Can you imagine him as Batman?
Absolutely.
He was just such a joy to watch. And I just love that storyline of how he was out to get them and then turned into watching over them, like almost like an archangel, big brother. And I love watching the episodes too, where Carolyn is really hot for him, you know. And I could never understand that. I was like, what's wrong with you, Burke? What's wrong with you? I mean, I know Vicky's beautiful too, but what's wrong with you? But she was a Collins, you know, she was stained as a Collins. And but her flirting with him and following him up to Bangor and all that. Oh my God, I love those episodes. She was so in love with him and was so hurt.
Bird Devlin is a dog. He kisses them both.
I know. He told you know, Carolyn that she was like or Vicky that she was a lost little kitten, and then another scene he called, you know, Carolyn a kitten. And it was like, but Joel Carruthers is probably one of the best looking guys I've ever seen. The looks and the acting ability on this show, I'm telling you, I could never understand that either, why Carolyn didn't see him as her knight in shining armor, because he was so loving and caring and such a good looking hunky guy, you know, Joel Carruthers. And but yeah, and I know you were talking to the girls about this. I love the scenes too with the lawyers.
Yeah.
Those are great. I would have liked to have seen more of those lawyers, and I would have liked to have seen how Vicky would have developed a relationship with the young lawyer there. I thought they were very the father was such a great actor, and so was the younger son. I thought that was a very interesting romantic storyline as a woman. I thought that was to watch that. They were interesting, and they were starting to get to the meat of who Vicky was. But did you ever see Joan Bennett look into the camera later in life and say that Vicky is her daughter? Did you ever see that clip?
Yeah, I
Isn't
did.
that awesome? Isn't that
There's
awesome?
well, there's a lot of little hints that
Yeah,
Vicky, like when
yeah.
Victoria comes to Collinwood, whose room does she get? Liz's old room when she was she was a teenager.
Mm,
She goes,
yeah,
this was my room and she was going to say till I got married,
yeah.
or until I became an adult. So you're giving a complete stranger your
Yeah,
old room. Yeah, you're giving your daughter your old room.
exactly. And taking care of her all those years, like sending money to to the orphanage, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Well, there's a lot of great moments where you have what was I going to say? Like where Joel Carruthers is
yeah,
dating, Joel Carruthers, Joe Haskell is dating Carolyn.
yeah,
There's that fight scene where Burke breaks it up and no one
yeah.
wants to mess with him in the Blue Whale, which I love.
Oh,
Um,
that's great. Yeah.
but here's a question. Why do you think Carolyn doesn't just leave Collinwood when she finds out Victoria arrived?
I think that she doesn't want to leave. She loves her mother. I think it's
Yeah.
twofold. I think there's two things going on. Yeah, that's such a question. Like, why didn't she go to college? Why didn't she go off?
Yeah.
I think, number one, there's just something about being a Collins, and you're drawn to the ancestral home. But she
Yeah.
did complain about it a lot in the beginning. Like, oh, I just want to be able to live. But I think that she was very protective of her mother, as we saw when she had an absolute breakdown when she was ready to marry Jason McGuire and she dated Buzz and all that for revenge. She's very attached to her mother, and I don't think she ever, even with Vicky there, ever wanted to leave her mother. And I also think in the back of her mind that maybe she thought Paul Stoddard would come home eventually or come
Yeah.
back. You
Yeah.
know, um, if I really had to dig deep into the psyche of the Carolyn character, I would think that those are the two things: her mother, love for her mother, and and I hope that maybe her father would show up, which he does later on.
There's I love your answers because I agree with them, and here's why. She doesn't need Joe Haskell to leave.
Yeah.
Col- Collinsburg. She has her own money. She has her own bankroll, for God's sakes.
Oh
She can just
yeah.
go wherever. She can go to Tasmania, Timbuktu.
Oh
She
yeah.
wherever.
Anywhere.
Right. And she hears Victoria's come, and she still stays. And I think it's because, well, yes, she wants her mother to confront her father, but she also wants to confront her father. Like,
Yeah.
how dare
How
you
dare you? You.
leave this woman
Yeah.
like for
Right.
18 years? And I think that's something that gets sometimes lost with Carolyn because she can be a brat.
Yeah. Oh
but
yeah.
if you sort of you have, especially with Carolyn, you have to sort of push the thorns aside to get to the rose.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good analogy. Yeah.
You know, right? Like there's a lot of thorns, so you're gonna get pricked anyway. So just
Yeah.
like gently move those aside. And you sort of get the sense that the character does care and
Yeah.
does give a shit. She's not just some snot-nosed brat. Yes, she can be.
Yeah.
So again, there's a lot of layers to the characters where
There is.
where Joe Haskell, he gets so drunk he confronts Liz, which I love.
That's a great scene. Yeah.
Joel Carruthers just, acted his ass off.
He did.
And really good. What's another episode you love for Black and White?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Well, I love when she brings Buzz home.
Yeah.
And he says, I want to ride my motorcycle right up those stairs. And she said, why don't you do it right now? And he's like, and even Buzz is like, Carolyn, calm down, because she's like French kissing him, and she's like telling him to ride his motorcycle, and then Liz comes down, and oh my god, Mrs. McGuire, and like, whoa. And the Buzz stuff is, even though it's sad, it's hilarious, because Buzz is pretty that just makes me laugh. I mean, it's just so funny, that whole saga. I get such a kick out of it.
I love the fact that the sound effect for the motorcycle is so spot on.
Oh yeah, the sound effect, vroom vroom.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's like they were just having too much fun with this. Where even Victoria did not like the sound of that motorcycle. It's like,
no.
But Buzz is the one character. It's like, he's so cool. You'd sort of like to see him stick around. But there's a really fun moment with him and Jason where he's just sitting on the steps and he's got his legs against the wall. And Jason's like, I don't want to step on you. Well, you could trip. He goes, I could just step on your ankle and break your ankle. And then Buzz moves.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. On the steps. Yeah, they're funny. I love how there's, a lot of comedy within our show.
He's just like, and when he's at the Blue Whale and he wants to like ride his bike, he'll literally not care about the beer and just like, let's go. And he's like, there was one. He goes, this isn't a costume. This is a way of life. And it's funny. Return of the Living Dead says the same line with the one guy.
Oh yeah, I wonder if they got that from.
Yes, yeah. It's
they
like,
might have.
They might have.
You're right.
I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, this guy could have been in a Night of the Living Dead movie.
Yeah, he could have.
So good.
He could have been one of the motorcycle drivers in Butch's Dawn of the Dead too. He could have been, like the Tom Servino, what's his name? Role. There's another episode I love, and it's episode 260, and it's when Maggie is being chased in the underground tunnels by Barnabas, and there's dueling music. You can hear Sarah's pipe. She's another favorite character, Sarah. You gotta love Sarah. There's her little piccolo with London Bridge is falling down, with Barnabas is ready to pounce on Maggie, our Dark Shadows, his music that is like so frightening. So there's dueling music, and and Sarah is leading her out away from Barnabas into the beach. Yeah. And I kind of lovingly disagree with you that I think, because it was before he was cured, before Barnabas had any heart at all. He was pretty ruthless and evil before the shots and before Lang. Right. And I really think, because there's an episode before that where Willie brings Maggie poisoned milk in the jail cell, and he says, he's going to kill you. So you have two choices to die. You can either drink this poisoned milk, or Barnabas is going to kill you. And I think when he comes down to see her, and Maggie's starting to, he thinks, go crazy, because she says, I saw a little girl, and and she comes and plays with me. And at that point, I think he sees Maggie as useless because she's gone crazy. And he
Yeah.
says, "Goodbye, Maggie Evans." And he calls her Maggie. And he leaves. And I think that he would have probably killed her had he caught up with her. But I know you disagree, and I respect that. You don't think that he ever really would have because he had a lot of opportunities. But I think that night, I think he
Yeah.
would have.
There's a lot of things in the Maggie Evans kidnapping too, where
Yeah.
like I love how when he says goodbye, Maggie, she's like, see. I just wanted to tell Catherine, like, shh, he's walking away.
I know.
It's so because it's like Fred is like terrified at this moment, like,
Oh, he's
it's like,
terrifying.
my God. But
Barnabas can be a badass. He is scary as hell when he's beating Willie and when he's like ready to kill. Oh my God, he was before he became our lovable Barnabas. He was terrifying. But yeah, with Catherine Lee Scott, oh my gosh, her acting in that whole thing was incredible, and so is Jonathan's. And her beautiful, cute little face. Oh my God, when she's in that black, she's just adorable, even in the jail cell. Like, and her acting choices are amazing.
there's
Um,
great lighting in that whole
yes.
like when you first see her come down in the Josette gown, she's so beautifully the lighting
Oh, she's
is so
gorgeous in that.
on her, and it's like front and center. And then when they're sitting at the dining table, it feels like a darker tone, even though she's sort of like, because she's not herself.
Yeah.
But then in Josette's room, it's not dark, it's somewhat lit. But in front of that mirror, when she has the music box open, she goes, "I'm Maggie Evans," and she slams it shut.
Yeah.
And it's
Maggie
such a great
Evans.
defining moment. I also love
That's a beautiful moment. Yeah.
I love too where yes, she says she saw Sarah, but I love Willie Lewis, John Carlos Willie Lewis. He's like, "Hey, I had to scare that kid. I had to scare a kid off. That David again. That's what Barnabas says." He goes, no. This was a little girl. And Barnabas like doesn't like what? No, Willie. There's no little girls around here, and it's like it's so criminally good because Barnabas is like, "What did you say now?"
I know. Sharon Lentz as little Sarah is so good in this and so adorable. And what a great touch to add little Sarah back. And your heart breaks for her because she said, "Everybody's gone and I can't find them." And it's like, oh my God. But there she is protecting Maggie, which is so beautiful, and getting her out of there and getting her back to Sam. And yeah, those episodes really, I think when Dark Shadows really got popular with the masses, it's amazing. I heard that Dan said when the ratings weren't doing great, he said, "You know what? Let's bring in a vampire." And I think about, how everybody went crazy for Jonathan, understandably, because he has such warmth and lovability, even, and then he's like sexy and scary when he's evil. But there's something I wanted the viewers to see, and I don't know if you've seen it yet. I was looking up Jonathan Frid intensely on YouTube, and there's a TV interview with him the channel's called St. Louis Flashback. Anyway, if you look under Jonathan Frid TV interview on YouTube by St. Louis Flashback, there is an interview with him. And this is like in the 80s, I think, when he was doing Arsenic and Old Lace on stage and things like that. He sits there and he does Telltale Heart in his prime.
Yeah.
And then he does King Richard III. And you feel as though you're watching him on stage perform those. He performs them. And I think our viewers that love Jonathan would love this. And I know Nancy Kersey, who you've had on. I love her. I'm friends with her on Facebook, who was his assistant. She has one of him too. And it's great. But this is by St. Louis Flashback, and it's Jonathan Frid TV interview, and I want everybody to watch it because you'll get to see him do Richard III, a small sect from it, and you'll get to see him sit there and perform Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, and you'll get to just enjoy Jonathan's acting. And I think that's what really just made this show so good. Is just like you point out time and time again, the acting and
Did you like, or sorry, did you like how like darkly lit the tunnels were underneath the old house when that chase scene was happening?
I did. I loved the lighting and the corridors, and like I said, the dueling music, and her holding on to that little doll, and it was so suspenseful. And him screaming for Maggie, and you didn't know it's a very pivotal episode.
Yeah.
Because as a viewer, you think, well, if Barnabas gets caught, what's going to happen to my vampire? But if Maggie doesn't get away, what's going to happen to her?
Yeah.
And that pivotal episode kind of changes all of Dark Shadows to go to the next level. It's a very pivotal episode. Her getting away like that.
Yeah.
And
I think too, to your point, what's pivotal about it too is you have Dr. Dave Woodard lying to Barnabas that, hey, Maggie's dead, and he says it so straight, like
so straight. Yeah.
Now and you can sort of see Fred's face, like, and I agree with what Patrick said, like, oh, I effed up here.
Yeah.
It's like, but he's
happy. He's happy almost that he got away with it. Like, oh, she's killed and I don't have to do it. She's dead and I don't have to do it,
Here's why I say I don't think he would have killed her. I think he would have did something, but not kill her. How many, prior to this, we've seen Willie beat Barnabas just for the hell, or Barnabas beat Willie just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, when he feels Willie's lying to him, if he feels Willie's lying about saying hi, he hits him. It's like,
yeah.
But I'm exaggerating. But
and in this, what we're talking about, remember he beats him when he says that he called and said that she's at Widow's or she's at Eagle Cemetery. Yeah. He beats him.
Yeah.
Before he even knows it was him or not, for real.
Right. And Jason's like, well, you like your face. But there's this big moment where Willie, who doesn't have a bruise mark on his face or anything because he hasn't been hit in a while, and it's like you're just waiting for it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's after Maggie's escape. It's after they find out that she's dead, that they're told. Yeah. So here's Barnabas, Jonathan Frid's character, in the old house, and here's Willie Loomis with him, and he's like Jiminy Cricket here on his shoulder, pretty much saying, "We killed that girl, Barnabas. We killed that girl," and I'm waiting for Frid to just take the cane and just start working on him.
Yeah,
he doesn't do shit. That's why, because it's like, okay, yes, you can have a moment of truth. We don't, I'm not saying that's not needed, but I don't think it's to the point of needed. Like, you already sort of had that realization at the hospital.
Yeah.
So with Willie saying it, it's like, wait a second. When he says that,
sinking in,
like,
yeah,
this, and you already get the sense that Barnabas has a conscience because of the conversation he has with Josette's portrait. That's, again, I'm not saying he's not capable of murder. He absolutely is.
Oh yeah. All those prostitutes and everything. Yeah.
Oh my God, right? I said to my friend Daniel Culver's going through the series, and I said, listen, Barnabas murders some prostitutes, but it's okay. I'm like, just let it go. But
oh my God.
he's like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Yeah." Willie brings them too. But so
What a life.
right, it's like Jesus. It's like between the cattle and the women off the dock. It's like Barnabas is living easy. So I was telling him this, that you really have to watch everything Barnabas says and not just does, because his converse between his conversation with Joseph's portrait to his when he's not beating Willie to a pulp, there are conversations. That's some of the great lighting too, with the effects where you see Willie's face after the beatdown. Is so criminally good. The black and blue marks on his face and how they have them. I love that.
Yeah, it's so good. I think that before he had any kind of cure, he was just pure evil. Like you said, he still had a conscience, but it was kind of a selfish conscience, because it was like, you didn't protect me. It was all about, it was kind of a selfishness, which is kind of part of being evil. It's like, I don't know, but like, I think that once he got the shots and Lang and part of Adam, he was like a whole different animal. But I just think that he was pure evil, and I think that he would have. But hey, that's why, we can agree to disagree.
So you were laughing.
That's a Dark Shadows fan.
Right, we're laughing about it.
But we're laughing about it. We're laughing about like death and destruction. Do you ever notice in Dark Shadows they never say death, or they always say the destruction? They always say like the destruction of.
Well, I think because too, what you got to sort of what the biggest realization of DS is. Even like before you see the first ghost. We don't see death until 1897, Mr. Best. But death, God, the devil, fate, these are all literal characters in DS. Though you don't actually, again, okay, we see the embodiment of Satan very briefly. We see the embodiment of death in Mr. Best. We don't see the embodiment of fate, but it doesn't mean it's not around. So I think because the reason you don't hear the word death often is because it's its own character in Dark Shadows long before it ever shows up. Before you see the physical manifestation of it. The one thing about DS that's most important to me is everything from a supernatural sense is on the table. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it isn't around. Look, I've talked about Patofe, where Patofe had a unicorn, so Patofe knows unicorns exist. Unicorn's supposed to be a mythical creature, just like the phoenix. So when he sees Angelique, he doesn't go at her right away. Well, why? Because he knows a witch is associated with who? The devil. So he doesn't touch her right away because he thinks, well, if I touch her, is he coming out of hell to get me?
He's scared of her.
Right. He doesn't want to invoke the devil. But once he sees that's not going to happen, then he does. So again, there's with DS, when you don't hear the word death, but you do hear somebody died. You'll hear this person died, like when they say Maggie's dead. But death itself, where'd you go?
Oh,